go to Springfield. There's a different sense.
I don't like to go into Eugene anymore because I don't want to get tased or pepper sprayed.
Eugene became pretty satisfied with the kind of little city that it was.
Even my boss, who lives in Springfield, called it Springtucky.
I think sometimes the people in Eugene thought they were a little uppity, and the folks in Springfield were more blue collar.
That's always the fun of it. That's the competitiveness between the two cities.
Increasingly, we're very similar to each other. I think historically that may have been more the case, but I think it really, we're sort of back and forth across the bridge, so to speak, now.
It is clear at this point that Eugene and Springfield have as much in common as they don't. History has shown that both have grown in leaps and bounds from their humble beginnings rooted back in the 1850s. And there's no reason to believe that trend won't continue.
I think we're going to physically grow. My prediction would be we do that.
As we grow, we diversify, and as they grow, they diversify.
So if they're both going to continue to grow, the question is how big and into what?
The one I've heard is Spugitopia, building off the great livability of the area, but clearly not a name that would catch on.
The name, of course, not catching on isn't the real issue. What most people would likely balk at is giving up identities that have taken over a century to mold.
I think right now people are pretty adamant about wanting to maintain their own, not to say anything bad about anybody else's community, but they love their own community.
I don't think there's any future in kind of glomming everything together so it's one homogeneous kind of area, and you don't know if you're driving from one neighborhood to another or one city to another.
I think that you can see in the Eugene-Springfield relationship, again, a sense of autonomy, that people want to be from Eugene, they want to be from Springfield.
You go from one to the next, there's identity, there's differences, and people like it that way. They do not want to see these two merge as into one.
Yet, there are many ways in which the cities already have. There's one wastewater treatment center for the area, staffed by workers from both cities. The 3rd Battalion Agreement allows the closest emergency vehicle to respond to a call, no matter which city it's in. And while Riverbend's primary hospital campus may sit in Springfield, it is clearly meant to serve residents from both sides of the river.
I just prefer to look at it as a regional hospital that serves both communities.
Shared services, especially in this day and age of the new normal, will likely continue popping up as both governments search for ways to be more frugal.
We're going to be looking at a lot of ways that we can share, and that may mean that we keep our identity in this way, but that we share more and more of the things that where you don't need to duplicate services.
Economically, the cities will continue competing for certain types of businesses, but when it comes to the greater good, it's practically gospel that the two cities have to work together to generate interest in Lane County as a whole.
Most businesses look at it as one marketplace.
From an economic development standpoint, there's plenty of regional opportunities.
Our community's economic development futures are very tightly connected. I think almost everybody recognizes that an economic win in Eugene benefits Springfield, and an economic win in Springfield is good for businesses throughout Eugene.
Having Royal Caribbean, for example, choose the Gateway area means big bucks in property taxes for Springfield, but jobs for people regardless of their zip code.
Clearly we have workers who go between the two cities.
All that does not mean the two will continue growing at the same pace, though.
We have a need to work regionally, but we also have a need, I think a greater need, to have distinctive and successful cities.
Springfield had been dying to grow for decades and didn't have the opportunity.
And now it does, having recently broken away from an agreement that allowed Eugene's say over when, where, and how big Springfield could grow.
One of the reasons why we went through the effort to separate the urban growth boundary, it wasn't a knock on Eugene, but it was we wanted to have our destiny in our hands. We kind of wanted to control our own fate.
Springfield people don't want to be governed by Eugene people at all because they think Eugene people would inhibit the growth that they're finally experiencing after all these years.
It means you can expect the city to the east of the Willamette to keep growing, and probably at a faster rate than Eugene.
That's welcome. The area does need some sort of new growth.
brings in new, different people.
Don't expect it, though, to ever equal Eugene in size.
I don't want it to get too big, but just big enough.
My own personal opinion is Springfield is as big as I'd like to see it.
Eugene, on the other hand, isn't as concerned with expanding outward.
It shouldn't grow, it should develop. See, growth goes out and destroys. Development creates.
That means filling in holes and building up rather than out, helping preserve what surrounds it, a strategy perhaps that's symbolic of the tug-of-war that exists within the community itself.
And I think that tension is always going to keep the community on a very steady, the region perhaps, on a sort of steady, incremental path.
Two governments, two cultures, two futures. Eugene and Springfield, two cities alike in so many different ways, but different in so many others.
The cities are different. I think kind of in these terms, we all live under the same sky, but we all have different horizons.